Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Sarah Bormann versus Yuko Kuroki fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. You can request any kind of combat sporting related content and I will try my best to get out there for you guys. There has been a great selection of content which has come from there so far, and I really appreciate all the support I've had with it, and of course the link will be in the description. Let's get straight into this one though. So this is, from what I believe, it is a unification fight for the WBO and WBA minimum world titles in the women's division, and this fight is heavily going under the radar, not having any kind of real presence of too much promotion. I mean, it is on the zone, which is something which is good. It's not getting completely shut out, but it is on the zone. It's with Dream Boxing, which have promoted a few of Sarah Bormann's fights. But again, it's interesting to see that there is no involvement of MVP around this event. And that's interesting because of course, MVP have got Yokasta and they've got Kim Clavel as well, two quite big, names in the minimum weight division. But when there's a unification fight about to be made, you would think that that would propel the winner into being, again, probably the biggest name in a minimum weight division. But of course, so far they've not had any involvement with MVP. This is in Sarah Bormann's home country of Germany. So yet again, I think she's fought all but one of her professional fights in Germany, so she's going to have that presence. And maybe that's the reason as to why she doesn't want to sign with one of these bigger promoters, because she will have to then kind of go on to fight maybe in the kind of back garden of the other kind of major champions like Canada or like Mexico perhaps. So instead, she's getting all the fights right around the corner from her, in the way of still being in Germany. So again, it's an interesting test. It's a good fight, I actually think, and I've been calling for quite a while for Sarah Bormann to get another kind of opportunity and another good fight. Of course, she did fight Neri Plata up at light flyweight, which she lost via split decision in 2023, which was actually Neri Plata's last fight. And Neri Plata, of course, is also fighting this weekend on an MVP show. But since then, Bormann has picked up the, of course, WBO minimum weight title against Meza in 2024, when Estrada made the belt vacant by retiring, and then she beat Rivero last time out by a strangely wide split decision, where I think there was one judge which had a win in 9 rounds, Bormann, and then the other one had it like kind of the opposite way around. I think they had it 97-93, the other judge. I can't remember off the top of my head, but for Rivero. So again, that was a bit of a weird scorecard and a hard one to kind of say how dominant it was that Bormann was actually winning the fight. But from watching it again, it did seem relatively comfortable in Bormann's favour, that fight. And Kuroki is, of course, WBA champion. And she's somebody who perhaps, on paper, doesn't have the most glamorous of records, with a long pro career which is stretched out from 2008. She is a former atomweight world champion, but in more recent times, of course, has been able to pick up this WBA belt, and she's beaten the unbeaten fighter in Ye King Seo to win the belt at minimum weight. And then of course last time out she defended it against Nanako Suzuki to defend the belt. And she's a fighter, of course, like I say, she's had a few ups and downs in her career. Again, her career and her record is a lot less glamorous than Bormann's, with of course 8 defeats I think on it. But she's a tricky southpaw, and she's going to give a tough test for Bormann. I think as a stylistic matchup, I think she actually could cause problems to Bormann with the movement in which she possesses, but we'll get onto that in just a moment. As a whole, like I say, this is a matchup in which I think is going to probably propel on the winner to hopefully kind of bigger and better things, similar to what the Evelyn Bermudez versus Sarah Bailey fight was. I think Evelyn Bermudez, or at least I hope that she gets propelled onto, bigger fights and bigger paydays as a result of, winning and becoming a unified champion. I hope the same with Sarah Bormann, of course, if she's able to become unified champion as well, because I don't feel like there should be, still quite a few champions who are just floating around without a major push. And of course, of course this is on DAZN, but still, like I say, it's not kind of being promoted that well. To speak about both fighters individually for this fight, we'll start off with Sarah Bormann. And Bormann is somebody who is a pressure fighter who's going to try and walk you down. She's able to punch through your guard throughout pretty much all of the shots in which she'll throw, and she does come with her own tight guard herself. She's a physically imposing fighter who has, in more recent fights, shown slight head movement improvements. That's, nice to see again. Of course, you always want to see a fighter throughout their career improve and, showcase them improvements. And I've followed Sarah Bormann's career for a little while now, and again, like I say, she has showcased a bit better improvements. And of course, on paper, that last performance of hers was not her best, but it was, still, again, like I say, showing gradual improvements. And coming from the defeat to Neri Plata, I think she has learnt from that. She's got a nice strong double jab in which she's able to, throw and maintain with a high output as a whole. She stands her ground well and wants to force, you to fight her fight and make you go back, which, for the most part, she's often able to make you go back and basically forces you to go back, basically just giving you no other option but to go back. And I have a feeling that she is going to have Kuroki on the back foot for the majority of this fight. She often leads off well with her jab. She changes levels pretty well. Again, that's something in which maybe she could do a little bit more, but she, does it all right. She's got a good chin. I think, just her style in general. Yes, she comes with a tight guard, but she does take at times quite big shots, and I think she does have a good chin. She steps into all of her shots, meaning that they do come with, good, strong physical intent, all of her punches, and she's able to attempt to counter, majority of the shots in which you're trying to throw. If you waste one, she will attempt to counter. Again, when I say attempt, it's not always going to land and her timing isn't excellent, but she is, at least trying to counter. Negatives about her, she's a flat-footed fighter for the most part. Again, that's why a fight like this against Kuroki might, cause her some issues, with Kuroki having, like I say, the better movement. She's got worse speed and just hand speed in general, foot speed. It is worse, it's slower. She's not very agile and she can stay in range too long. She can be predictable launching in with the straight right after the jab, and that was what Rivera was able to kind of watch out for and to continuously move away from, and made Bormann miss quite a lot in that fight, just from, like I say, launching herself in, throwing that jab, singular or double, then just launching herself in with a straight right afterwards. Her accuracy, again, for the most part, she can have issues with that, just not finding the range, not cutting off the ring, often throws a jab when her opponents are moving backwards, so it's kind of just completely wasteful because she's not measured it really at all. And in general, like I say, I think her accuracy is a problem. She doesn't really cut off the ring, and she, like I say, doesn't have the best of timing. She has quite wide overhands and wastes shots when she's throwing them. She doesn't really shorten up her shots the best. She, I think, has trouble against fast movers, and I think she doesn't really work openings or try and create angles. She tries to force her way in a bit too much, and she does walk onto, a considerable amount of punishment. To speak about Kuroki as a fighter, she's got decent footwork. Again, it's nothing incredible, but it's decent footwork. It's better footwork defensively than that of Bormann. She's faster. She is willing to throw with her opponent, which again showcases that she's got heart and desire and is willing to, give a lot to be able to, get some work off. But yeah, it is a bit risky, of course, and in this fight I don't think that her game plan should be to get into them exchanges with Bormann, because I just physically don't see that going in her favour. She's got a few knockouts on her resume, but again, when you look at them and the calibre of them knockouts against, the opposition, it's not really the best opposition in which she is able to stop. She kind of is able to poke her shots through, and again, she might be able to create or find the gaps in the tight kind of guard of Bormann, or when Bormann is throwing, she might be able to catch her with a few shots which maybe can off-put her a bit. She won't be bullied, I think. She's used to being the away fighter. She's used to having, of course, considerably tough fights. And again, she is willing to walk through that. She's got all right timing. When she is able to land her kind of big left, or her straight left, she can, catch you down the pipe with that, and that probably is her strongest shot, and that almost knocked down her last opponent as well. I can't remember what round it was in, but it had her last opponent a bit rocked just from, catching her, timing her well and catching her a bit off guard. And, again, it's a nice shot if she can time it. When she starts to be a bit more explosive off her back foot, again, that's when she can fight a bit better, and that's when she can catch out her opponents. She's willing to drop down to the body, probably should do it a bit more. Again, she probably does have the cleaner work out of the two. She doesn't smother as much. She has better feints. She's not got bad head movements either. Again, I would like to see her chin not be, in the air as much, and, her to not be caught with as many straight shots, but for the most part, she hasn't got that bad a head movement. And to speak a bit more about the negatives, like I say, I think that chin is in the air quite a lot, and when she gets caught with a straight shot, it looks like it looks like a lot worse of a shot than it actually is, because it really pings the head back. And again, in that last fight as well, she was having that problem with, multiple shots in which she was getting caught with. She's not really got that much power behind her shots. Again, when she is able to time you, she can land relatively hard, or if she is being a bit more explosive, she can, generate a bit of power, but a lot of her shots are just tapping shots, and they are quite wasteful, just not finding the target and not really finding her range that well. She's, in my opinion, quite physically weak as a fighter. She will sit on the ropes when she's backed up quite often, which again is a bit of a problem. I think I would love to, see her movement actually come and, be used a bit more with her, on the back foot, but I think she just doesn't really use it enough. She can allow herself to be in a war, which is again a problem which I just don't think she should be doing. With Bormann, she doesn't really, gain the respect of her opponents too much unless she is able to land that good, straight timed shot. She can kind of flail her arms out when she's in a bad position, not really, like I say, not really trying to work or not really trying to fight out of them bad positions. If things aren't going her way, she will kind of just start throwing her arms without much control. She does slow down, and I think she slows herself down throughout the fights, where she does get a bit more tired because of she is moving quite a bit. And she doesn't really fight the best on the inside either. Who do I think is going to win in this fight? I think that Sarah Bormann is going to be able to win. I think it is going to be a unanimous decision. It could be another close split decision again with the style of Kuroki being willing to be on the back foot a bit more could cause Bormann a few problems if Kuroki is moving enough, but I think as Kuroki maybe slows down, I think Bormann will be able to maintain a solid decent pace where she is just walking you down and coming forwards, and I think she's going to push the pace. Bormann, of course, she's going to have the home crowd advantage as well, and I think she is going to catch Kuroki with quite a few of them straight shots, which, like I was talking about, often looks like it has a lot of effect onto Kuroki because, just it always kind of pinging back the head. And so again, like I say, a Sarah Bormann victory is what I'm going to go with via decision. Then who she could go on to fight next? I mean, of course, there's a couple big fights. Clavel is, of course, now IBF champion, and, Yokasta Valle is fighting Bustillos for the WBC belt. It looks like MVP are trying to make Clavel versus Valle, but if you really look at it, Bormann probably stakes a better claim than Clavel for Valle as a fight, because Bormann had her fight against Neri Plata, so did Clavel. Neri Plata beat Clavel unanimously, whereas Bormann, lost via a split against Neri Plata. And of course, Clavel also went on to lose again for the title. So again, Bormann has only got that singular loss on her record and is, of course, a unified champion, whereas Clavel just holds the singular title. So if I am Yokasta Valle, I'm looking at that and going, well, Bormann, there's probably more to gain from the Bormann fight. Of course, I'm sure Bormann would come across with a big German audience and fan base. I know that Clavel has a big Canadian fan base. So, again, it wouldn't surprise me if they make, Valle versus Clavel if Valle beats Bustillos. But if they don't, the Bormann fight's there. If not, then there's a 5-0 Japanese fighter. Her last name's Wada. She could be another test, again, perhaps if Bormann isn't going to get the big kind of signing with MVP or with any of the other big promoters, then maybe a WADA fight could be an easy one to make, as, like I say, another Japanese competition. Again, another test, another way to be able to defend her now unified belts. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.